All right. Good afternoon, everyone. People just joining us online. We're just kicking off a few minutes late the October 21st meeting of the Comox Valley Regional District Board. And I'll just call that to order. And as our practice, I'll just acknowledge that we are gathering together on the unceded traditional territories of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land, and reading call to action number 81, commemoration. We call upon the federal government in collaboration with survivors and their organizations and other parties to the settlement agreement to commission and install a publicly accessible, highly visible residential schools national monument in the city of Ottawa to honor survivors and all the children who are lost to their families and communities. All right, moving on to adoption of minutes. This is from October 7th. Okay, any corrections? Anyone opposed to adoption? And that carries. So we'll just now move on to reports. And the first is the Comox Valley Poverty Data Walk. And there's a report there. I'll just pass it over to our CAO to introduce that. Thank you. Moved and seconded.
Thanks, Chair. Michelle Ibert, our social planning coordinator, will be introducing this report. And Michelle, I'll turn the microphone over to you.
Afternoon to the chair, to the directors. This report is about the Comox Valley Poverty Data Walk. It's an initiative that comes underneath the poverty reduction strategy work that's being done. It's one of several things that are happening. We'll be coming back in a few months to give more information on other things related to poverty reduction work. But we wanted to bring this forth because it's happening now and wanted to make sure information goes out about it. With that, I can answer any questions.
All right. Looking around, I'm seeing perhaps Dr. Brown. I'll move slowly so she can finish her mouthful. Oh, there's the button. There you go.
Thank you so much for giving me that second. So I've seen the signs up in the village of Cumberland already, but then they're gone. So is the QR code available elsewhere that we can continue to share with people, or is it meant to be just that in-person kind of experience?
Yeah, through the chair. The posters have been hopping around on purpose. So yes, that's correct. They've been in each place for about several weeks, including places like Comox Boardwalk and different fairs and different events. And they're also going to be in indoor locations now, have already been in the Courtney Library and other places. And this next part of the data walk is mostly indoors because of the weather now. And there's also an opportunity waited to take a virtual data walk. And that's the easiest and best way at this time to make sure someone sees the signs. And the link for that is on the Engage page. So on the report, you see the Engage page, and then there's a link to take the virtual data walk. Yeah, so.
All right. Well, Michelle, very comprehensive report. We got no questions here. I think you provided us everything that we need. So we're still in receipt. Is anyone opposed to receipt? That carries. And the recommendation? Okay, moved and seconded. Any comments on the recommendation? Anyone opposed to adopting that? And that carries. Thanks very much, Michelle.
Thanks so much.
Evening. Next, the 2023 CRI Fires Smart Community Funding and Supports Grant Update. And I'll pass this again over to our CAO. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Bruce Green, our Regional Rural Fire Chief, will be introducing this report. And I think Bruce will be supported by Tess Jaskowitz, our Emergency Management Technician.
Thanks, James. Through the CEO to the chair and the directors. As you're aware, in 2023, we applied for a CRI grant, a regional CRI grant. It was the first one that we've done. Today, I've got Teresa Yuskevich here, the Emergency Management Technician for the Comox Valley Emergent Programs, just going to give you a high overview of what we've accomplished in the last 2 years. So, Teresa, over to you.
Hi, everybody. So the Fire Smart BC program is a provincial initiative aimed at reducing the risk of wildfire damage to homes, communities, and forests. founded on 7 disciplines to address wildfire preparedness from different angles. These disciplines help educate and prepare residents, their homes, neighborhoods, critical infrastructure, vital natural resources from wildfire. This is a shared responsibility involving homeowners, neighborhood leaders, all levels of government, and participation from the private sector. To this end, the Comox Valley Regional Community Fire Smart Resiliency Committee, that is a mouthful, was created to support working collaboratively to reduce duplication, improve efficiency, and create consistent messaging for the public. The purpose of the committee is to work within the 4 phases of emergency management: response, mitigation, preparedness, and recovery, to strengthen relationships between key partners and agencies at the local and regional level, to collaboratively coordinate, plan, and share information on how to build more wildfire resilient communities, assist in implementing or growing the 7 fire smart disciplines within the Comox Valley. So our committee consists of a representative from Comox First Nations, the City of Courtenay, Town of Comox, Village of Cumberland, and the Comox Valley Regional District. The CVRD, through the Comox Valley Emergency Management Service, applied for our first regional grant in 2023, and we were successful in receiving just over $450,000. The report submitted outlines the various successes the committee has had. I'm going to just highlight 3 of them. One of the most successful initiatives has been our yard debris removal program, commonly referred to as our chipper program. The grant funds a support to a contractor to chip items residents leave at the end of their driveways. Areas are selected by the local fire departments. The removal of the yard debris reduces backyard burning and the potential fire risk from that activity. By having people put the debris at the end of their driveways, we are making it more accessible and reducing the financial burden on the public. The chips are then hauled away and dropped off at the liquid waste facility to be used in the creation of compost, thereby diverting debris from the landfill. Each committee member area has had at least 1 chipper event throughout the grant cycle, apart from electoral area A, which, due to its geographical considerations, has 2 additional chipper programs. These are held on each one of the islands individually, and each of those chipper programs keep the chips on island and do the same composting that we are doing here. Secondly, we had a big year for education and awareness. Wildfire Preparedness Day at the Courtenay Farmers Market sees each of the fire departments, the Comox Valley Emergency Management Service, in attendance, as well as our partners from CFB Comox, RCMP, BC Hydro, BC Wildfires, and many others I am sure I'm forgetting. The grant funds were used to support community-based initiatives like the Wildfire Watershed Symposium and Science Pubs. We attend various fairs and markets across the region, from Indigenous Peoples Day to Seedy Saturday Farm Market. Collaboratively working to embed Fire Smart within our Neighborhood Emergency Preparedness Program, commonly referred to as NEP. Doing this supports further consistent messaging, along with supporting an all hazards approach to emergency resiliency within the public. Often actions that reduce wildfire risk often increase overall resiliency, all of which encourage peer-to-peer preparedness and help residents feel empowered rather than fearful. And the final project I wanted to highlight was the completion of our Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan, referred to as the CWRP. During this process, we engaged over 25 different organizations with the intent of looking at what it means to be resilient in our community. It's more than just our houses and our businesses, it's also our parks, our watershed, and our cultural areas. This document reflects that and will be used to guide our planning efforts across the region for the next decade. In closing, Fire Smart is more than a wildfire program. It's about building resilient, connected, and informed communities across our region. By anchoring Fire Smart within an all hazards approach, we are setting a provincial example of collaborative risk reduction. Any questions? Bruce can answer them.
Thanks so much for the presentation, Tess. And looks like there are a few questions. Go ahead, Director Brown.
Thanks, and thank you so much for this work. I live on Camp Road, and we had a great event with lots of chipping and education, and yeah, it was really great. My question is about in the report, the next steps speak to green space, and so part of the challenge we have in Cumberland, as you know, is we are literally surrounded by forest lands. And some of those are private lands owned by developers who are reluctant, let's say, to fire smart adjacent to their neighbors. So we have like dead trees hanging over properties that the neighbor doesn't want to deal with. And so would that expansion help with those issues, or is that just any kind of support on that would be
So-
great.
With private lands, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's like the Fire Smart program. Like, we can't make you get involved in the Fire Smart program. It's up to the residents to be involved, and the same with the private managed lands. That being said, we're working collaboratively with the biggest private managed forest lands in the area to look at this and ways we can do that. So I think it's more about trying to work with and then trying to force them to come to the table. And I think the more we start doing this, the more they're going to look at that. And I know on a provincial level, they're looking at the whole island, because it's a challenge, not just in the valley, it's a challenge on the whole island. And I do sit on for the Fire Chiefs Association, BC Fire Smart Committee, that is brought up at that level as well. So we are approaching that to see if we can get those bigger players involved in helping us out with this.
That's great. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Chief. And go to Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks very much for this good work. I'm just curious, in the next steps, it talks about a demonstration forest with a 5-hectare fuel treatment area, and I just wondered what that was.
So we have applied for the next CRI grant, and I think we might be able to announce soon that we've been awarded it, but it's $1.8 million that we've applied for, and one of those is to do Fire Smart on the bigger landscape, so demonstration forest. Our intent is, Teresa can tell me which ones they are, but there's 3 areas that we have selected to do demonstration for. So what we would do in there is go and Fire Smart a part of that area, and our intent is the parts that abut to the neighborhoods within the non-combustible zone in the 100 meters of those neighborhoods. So it's not about taking the trees out, it's about limiting the trees. So if there's a fire in the canopy, it comes down into the ground. If the fire's on the ground, it's really easy for the fire department to deal with. When it's in the canopy, we can't deal with that kind of fire. So the treatments are about getting fire down onto the landscape that makes it easier to us to defend the houses.
All right, looking around, not seeing no comments online. So this is just for receipt. So thanks so much for sharing the information with us, and have a good evening. Thanks. Anyone opposed to receipt? And that carries. Next, our asset management strategy is for receipt. Thank you very much, and I'll pass it over to our CAM.
Thank you very much. And Lucy Wacharek, our Chief Financial Officer, will be introducing the report, and then introducing Tina, who is our Manager of Financial Operations. This report, it's an important strategy for the regional district. We felt it important. There's no recommendation being presented here today, but it's an important opportunity, I think, to describe the program, describe the policy, describe some of the foundational material that the CVRD has been putting into practice, and how it is a benefit to the organization. So we want to share that at a fairly high level, but there's some detail to go into here too. So and then encourage any kind of discussion or conversation to follow. Lucy.
Thank you so much. So through the CAO to the chair and the directors, good afternoon. Staff are pleased to be in front of you today to present this completed asset management strategy. This reaches a significant milestone in the progression of our CVRD asset management program, and as staff, we're quite proud that we have met this 2025 goal. Today, we have a pretty short presentation for you, which will highlight to directors the strategic links, some high-level outcomes, and resources necessary. I did just want to take a moment just before moving to the PowerPoint just to bring awareness and recognition to the fact that the completing of the strategy has been a true collaborative affair across most of our departments in the organization. The Asset Management Steering Committee is responsible for bringing the strategy together. I want to let you know that the committee is made up of 11 members, and that's representing about 10 key departments across departments. And we also have 4 non-voting members that help to support the advancements. Some of our asset management steering committees members are in the audience today. We thought we'd have more, but we did get notification that some of our members could not attend today. Kelly is on the committee and she's here in the audience today, but I'm sure they'll be watching and listening, if not today, at some point. Well, the presentation is short for you today. The strategy does include 14 areas of advancement for which our departments are very strongly committed to, I find. They're committed to actioning them with the support of our departmental specific leaders, the direction coming from the Asset Management Steering Committee and our executive team. So today is the first of what will be regular annual or biannual updates that we'll come back to the board with, and this is to keep you up to date, and Tina will speak about it more, but there's also a component of this that will bring awareness to the community as well. And with that, I will pass it over to Tina.
Thank you, Lucy. Through the CAO chair and the director. So Asset Management Department is here today. Our department also have Eleni. She has some personal stuff need to deal, so I'm sure she will review the YouTube channel. So we're very happy to bring this asset management strategy and the implementation plan today. Here's our PowerPoint. So the establishment of the AM program is included in the board 2023 and 2026 strategic initiatives, a component of the fiscal framework. The strategy was developed using the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Best Practice Guide, how to develop an asset management policy, strategy, and a governance framework. CVRD's asset management program follows the AMBC's framework, which emphasizes sustainable service delivery through the 4 core elements: people, assets, finance, and information. So the Community Charter, Section 7, and Local Government Acts, Section 185, outlines the local government's responsibility to store the public assets within its community. Like other local governments, the CVRD is facing aging infrastructure, rising costs, and growing risks that must be managed to deliver service at a great level. In early 2025, CVRD was assessed at completed level 1 out of 5 in the overall corporate assets management maturity. We use the FCM's Asset Management Readiness Skills tool. So you can see from this radar chart, we are kind of more advanced on the budgeting, communication, and knowledge sharing with outside organizations. But of course, we are kind of shy in some other areas. So this assessment indicates that CVRD is in the early stages of its AM maturity. The development of the AM strategy and the roadmap will increase the maturity of the strategy and roadmap outcome areas under policy and a governance competency area. Upon success implementation of the strategy, the CVRD's AM maturity will rise from assessed level 1 rank to level 3. So the AM program was relaunched in 2023, and since then, significant advancement have occurred, including with completion of 3 initial AM plans, implementation of CMMS system, like the Enterprise Computerized Maintenance Management System. We established the AM Steering Committee. We completion of a comprehensive utility review, rate review for all water local service area. 9 building condition assessment has been done. Board adopted the AM policy early this year. We have this AM strategy approved by the EMT, and we also have the AM data standard being developed. So as Lucy mentioned, in the strategy documents, we have 14 initiatives identified and are planned for implementation over next 5 years period, including data governance standard, inventory including natural assets inventory, condition assessment framework, AM technology solution, risk assessment framework, level service framework, AM plans, report cards, dashboards, long-term financial plans, prioritization framework, AM training plan, engagement plan, human resource plan, and last but not least, the document workflows and procedures. So for each initiatives in the strategy, we have objective key actions and success criteria identified to ensure the accountability and transparency. We have a two table here on this slide. So as we all know, successful implementation of a formalized corporate AM program will require additional staffing and funding to support the development and integration of new business process over time. So a preliminary assessment was conducted to identify the staffing resource required to implement this plan, this strategy, and also supporting the ongoing improvement to CVRD's AM practice. Table 1 summarizes the proposed staffing requirements for 2026 to 2030 financial planning cycle. So 3 FTEs planned for 2026 onboarding, 1.55 FTE planned for 2027 onboarding, and 1 FTE planned for 2028 onboarding. Table 2 summarizes the total funding requirements for 2026-2030 budget cycle, including the staffing cost. So the total funding we estimated is approximately $5.4 million for 2026 to 2029. So since the EMT's approval of the AM strategy, funding estimates have been updated, and we will still continue to refine the numbers as additional information become available. While the upfront and operational expense are substantial, a well-implemented AM program delivers long-term financial benefits by optimizing asset performance, minimizing unexpected failures, and supports data-driven decision-making with enhanced service, substantial service delivery. There are opportunities for the CVRD to assess provincial and federal funding. Implementing advanced technologies will improve efficiency in managing assets and allocating resources. It will increase public awareness and also strengthen the collaborations with other local governments and Indigenous communities. The board will receive an annual report on the progress of the AM program. So with that, we're here to answer the questions or comments you may have.
Great, thanks very much. Looking around, and we'll take a question from Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks very much for a very lengthy report. Obviously, a lot of work going on. I just wanted to ask about the staffing component. And while I recognize that this is work that is currently being undertaken by people who primarily have other things to do, and you want to make sure that it's done properly, I guess somewhat traditionally, the CVRD has been seen as having significantly more staffing resources than, for example, the municipalities. I don't need to give you the history of the grumbles that we've heard from previous councils about that. But because we're looking at new staffing resources, I just wonder if you can provide some further justification for that. Thanks.
Yes, thanks for the question, Director. So we did have a consultant coming in early of 2025, which just gave us a AM review, a comprehensive AM review regarding how we should structure our AM program, whether we need to be centralized or decentralized. And so they kind of like evaluated our current organization, and then they provided us a recommendation saying we should have a branch level AM specialist, which is kind of included in our staffing resource plan. So that's where you can see there. I'll bring the slides back to that. Sorry, I can't. Lisa, would you mind? The two table one. So you will find there's a 3 in 2026 for the 3 FTE onboarding. That's the AM specialist at the branch level. We're proposing to have 1 FTE for water department, and then 1 FTE shared between wastewater and solid waste. So overall 2 FTE for the engineer branch, and then 1 FTE will be shared by the departments in the community service branch. And then for the GIS and IS, so the rationale behind that 0.55 and 1 is we currently have only water onboarded to City Work, the asset management software, and then over IS department or GIS departments are capped, so they don't really have spare capacity to undertaking more tasks. But in 2026, we are planning to have more departments onboarding to this asset management system, the CMMS system. So being said, like we have a RAC and we have wastewater. So after we onboarding them, we're feeling there's a constraints in both GS and IS department to supporting actual departments. So after talking with our technology working group, talking with the IS departments, we're feeling 2027 it's kind of like a reasonable time to onboarding. Consider we already have two departments onboarded, and we don't have any kind of other supports after the onboard.
I see that Lucy perhaps wants to say something, so I'll go to her and then go back to Director Helene.
Just if I could just add to what Tina has explained, she's done a great job of explaining what we've learned from assessing where we are at this given point in time and what the recommendations are for moving forward and putting in place resources that are needed to fully move forward with an asset management program. And just what I wanted to add, and I don't know completely the history as you ask about CVRD having a lot of staff in this space. However, what I did want to say is that from establishing an asset management program, how it's absolutely necessary to have an asset management department in order to be able to roll that out across the whole organization. So without that level, that in place in the organization, finding success in this space, I'm sure we could go back and find a lot of examples of municipalities that have tried and failed at this, and maybe one of the reasons being that. So that's a piece that's necessary. Just my other second point, it's difficult if we're looking to actually pull out the exact what positions are about asset management. I'm not sure that that's possible, nor that we should look at it that way in essence, because asset management is something that needs to be fully integrated in operations, right? So yes, our staff currently are doing asset management like tasks. Are we doing as much as we should be from a practice perspective? Our maturity tells us we're not. And part of looking at how we're structured organizationally is about how do we there's a lot of work that's happening right now in optimizing how we do water operations, for example, and our sewage treatment operations, and how do you use your existing and new staff to make it as efficient as possible. So that's what it's all kind of intertwined into how we're determining what the human resources are that we need, if that helps.
Director Helene, you had another question.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, thanks for the response. The other thing I was curious about is the 600,000 for consultants in the first year. And the report talks about reliance on consultant services until we can build up our own internal resources. Yet we're spending almost 700,000 in year 3. So again, it seems like a lot of money on consultants, and perhaps I'm not 100% sure what exactly these folks do with all that money. So
would you like us to provide you a bit more detail around that?
A bit more, please.
Just to speak of that. Tina, do you want to go through what's structured across those years?
Sure. So we do have kind of a more detail. We thought it may be too much information put on the slides, but we can break down a little bit for the first year, and maybe if you want the future years, what we included in the consultant cost. So a good portion of it is the condition field work inspection. Like we don't currently, like a department level, we don't really have, I guess, the expertise and also the capacities to do all those condition assessment, and tends to be like those kind of work are very expensive. Consider like, you know, what kind of like asset portfolio we are actually holding in CVRD. And also we have a huge portion was being allocated to the documented procedure. So we have some departments kind of hiring consultants to have the like current state and future state document procedures are kind of laid out with the consultants, which is really helping them to kind of build up any works plans and how they kind of like planning the work to be proactive instead of reactive. So what else we have? And for 2026, we do have a lot of work kickoff. So we have a condition assessment, risk assessment, level service assessment framework will be kicking off. And then we are kind of like estimated we do need some kind of like expertise from the consultants to helping us to build that corporate level frameworks, and then we can implement into the field inspections and other things. And yeah, so that's kind of like the first year why we have a lot in 600K in first year, because we have a lot of projects started in 2026 to be able to kind of finish within this 5 years plan. And yeah, so I think I can stop here. If you need more information regarding the future years, we can bring up, but yeah, I'll just stop.
Oh, yeah. I could, sorry, I'll turn your mic on, but just maybe just leave it on if it's if that's a little easier, I think. There.
Okay, so the year 3, we have 150K was kind of like a budgeted or estimated for the natural assets inventory. So that will be natural assets kind of a project kick in that year. Again, like natural assets, like consider the size, the parks and the geographic areas, and also the cost estimation. We don't have the expertise, and we think that will be a consultant work.
We do continue. We've had lots of conversations about how we know it's more expensive for us to hire consultants. So we've talked about where there are places where if we build our own internal resources, how we can have some significant savings. So we're very aware of that. And as we move forward, we'll keep putting that forward.
All right, thanks. We'll go next to Director McCollum, and Director Arbor. I saw your hand up, but it's down now. Let me know if you do want to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what's coming out through this process is that our organization is probably a little behind or pretty under-resourced in terms of the work that we've wanted to see in this space. And I suppose the proposal is likely trying to address some catching up that we need to do. It seems an area that we've maybe struggled with more at the regional district than in smaller organizations for, I think, a variety of reasons. But 3 staff plus consulting fees that would represent 1 very well-paid full-time professional, and then some. It definitely causes reason to pause and wonder if there is a better way to roll this out than trying to address what I think is a gap in how we've been handling our asset management. One concern I have is hiring 3 specialists for 3 different departments. We have services in the CVRD that provide support services for, support across the organization, your department probably being the primary example, and administration. And I do wonder if we want to bring on this new professional capacity that we haven't necessarily had, if it would make more sense to bring this in as an organization-wide professional or a handful, a team, rather than trying to, roll this out maybe in a less efficient way possible and having 3 separate people try and get up to speed on. And then also recognizing that maybe it would make more sense to identify what the area is, be it solid waste or liquid waste or water or what have you, and work our way through as opposed to trying to bring all departments along at the same time. So I'm just wondering if those conversations were had and how, like, what gives us confidence that doing it this dispersed way is the best way to approach this problem?
I'll just start and Tina can provide a few other details. When, as we mentioned, and we had some assistance with analyzing our current state. And through that, there's recommendations that came on how we would structure ourselves in the organization to get this done. And part of the process of going through that was circling into, there's different models for doing this. And I think if I'm understanding you correctly, you can model this from the perspective of having it centralized or decentralized. So we did consider that. We talked about that a lot. And we decided and we felt, and we flushed this through with our EMT table as well, that the decentralized model fit us best. And from those 3 positions that are there, they are for water services, for wastewater, solid waste management, and community services area. Recreation up first, but shortly thereafter, other departments that are included in they'll be getting going on the other departments. Our rec facilities are first. They are already advanced at a place where incorporating those into their departments and part of their full operations and managing assets seem to make the most sense to us. And maybe Tina, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about what was found from a current state and what your operators are doing now, and how incorporating a position like this will actually make things more efficient. And we totally believe that from the perspective of, the amount of maintenance, maybe output that happens in any particular day or month, that it will get better.
Yeah, so from that kind of the AM review or the value chain review, we find like the operational team is actually doing a lot of the planning work right now. And so we're kind of want to separate out the planning and also the operational team. So the operational team can really focus on the service delivery part. And the branch AM specialist will kind of like also kind of delay or kind of eliminate the staff requesting from the operational team or from the department. And for those 3 AM branch specialists, so they will kind of like report directly to their senior manager or for their GM for their branch, and they will also dot kind of a report to corporate AM. So we'll kind of like work closely. We're kind of like in the balance between decentralized or centralized module. Also kind of because not like the I guess not like the municipality, like a regional district, like each service, we have kind of a separate budget, right? So we cannot really kind of like, they are kind of like isolated a little bit. So we're kind of and also they're kind of operating differently. So we do need to kind of like emphasizing they are specific, they're different service to deliver, but at the same time, kind of like having the corporate AM and then dot reporting the corporate AM to making sure all those branch AM kind of like following the consistency frameworks or consistency procedures. So that's what we feel is the best fit for CVRD. And Mark, do you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you through the CEO and through the chair. I thought I could just add to maybe more specifically address Director McCollum's question around individual resources in individual departments. They might go in their own direction, and they will, even though they are individual within the departments, they will work as a team through a constant set of processes and procedures. So they will be implementing, the same kind of framework and process around condition assessment and risk assessment and all the other aspects around asset management. So there will be a lot of consistency built around what they do, even though they're not necessarily centralized in a team.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess the reason why I bring that up is that I do wonder if by having something decentralized, we could you know, save on some like human resources in that, you know, we're talking about a pretty large increase to, you know, to our FTEs in implementing this program, like, you know, 5.5 over 3 years is a lot, plus those consulting fees. Yeah, to me, it seems like a consultant that's now going to work across 3 departments, but instead of maybe having some centralized services where they are also working to bring departments up to, you know, what's set out in the strategy. So I just have concerns about how much we're putting into this right off the bat, and whether, you know, I guess my question maybe is there more than one way to approach this that doesn't involve necessarily laying out this type of investment over 4 years where, you know, dealing with so many cost escalations and adding something of this magnitude that is quite difficult to explain to the public, because when you put this in layman's terms, it sounds a lot like work we should be doing already. And I don't mean that in a, you know, that in a negative way, but it is hard to explain, you know, another $5 million over 4 years to manage replacement of assets, which is our primary purpose, and you know, a thoughtful way of maintaining and ensuring a long life. So I had another question just about the human resource line and how those numbers add up to what the FTEs are in the chart, just because the initial, it's 3 FTEs in 2026 at 260,000. And then the following, I guess maybe that does make sense. I was, it seems like there's almost a doubling, but I guess maybe those are just more specialized positions. I'm not sure why it doesn't quite work out. Oh yeah, the 3 lines for human resource on that chart are the same for 2027, 2028, and 2029, but I'm realizing on the chart in front of me, it does increase. So I think maybe there's just a number that wasn't updated. So I think I just answered my own question.
If I,
You
yeah,
want to
thanks.
make a comment?
No, and I appreciate the discussion, and I think we knew that this is a significant program and a significant body of work and a significant proposal to be putting forward. I wanted to address a couple of things that I heard from a few different speakers, and one is the idea that this is work that is already happening or it's off the side of the desk, and I think from the maturity model, it's pretty clear that we're not doing this work. We're not doing this work in a sufficient enough way to be able to really understand our assets and be able to plan for the future and avoid situations where we're going to have waterline breaks and maintenance that's not being maintained, and then the added cost and the risk that comes with that. So this is new work that is proposed. Knowing the impact and the scale and the size, I wanted to include the bottom percent line of that bottom table to reflect the relative amount of this particular body of work in relation to the overall operating budget. And it is big. It is big resources. It's big dollars, no question. Relative to the operating budget, it's in that 1%, just over 1% range, which I think is an important factor given the size of the organization, given the scale of our assets, the services we deliver, the broad range of activities that we do. And I think, you know, I want to give credit to Tina, to Lucy. We have an asset management committee, staff committee that is cross branch, cross department. It's pulling in representatives from engineering, community services, planning and development services, which you might not think has a lot of assets, but they do. And then of course, finance and corporate services are represented there as well. And that asset management team has been working with the policy that's in place and working to develop a program that we feel is a very much needed and I would say responsible approach to be able to increase the maturity of our asset management program at the CVRD. and get to a place where we'll have more certainty and confidence in budgeting and planning our work and being able to continue providing services to the community. So I do recognize that these are substantive requests and proposals and the program overall, but we're trying to keep that in context with the organization as a whole, recognizing the scale of services we provide.
I would just add that from a grant perspective, one of these places we continue to look for some grants. We have application in for strategic priority one, so we'll see if we can get some money. This work has been out there for us to do from a federal, provincial level for quite a while, and we'll work to keep these costs lower than what we have out here, and also look for grant dollars to help in any of the pieces where we can.
All right, thanks. I'm maybe gonna, just because my question follows on with this, I'll maybe jump into the queue. The staff report does talk about a lot of economic impacts that implementing an effective asset management program can provide, including it says the potential grant loss of not doing it could account for about 1% of our total operating budget. Unexpected asset failure, service disruptions. You've been it's been helpful to project all the costs, and they are sobering. I'm just wondering if you might be able to run through what you believe might be some of the economic benefits and whether net this ends up, what that sort of figure looks like for the position for the regional district.
Mm-hmm. I just had one. I'll just speak to the grant, and Tina, if you think of other examples that may come to your mind, and Mark, you likely will too. I just wanted to say that that risk that's out there from a grant perspective, we feel is really real as we get out to year 5. I think if we don't, as local governments, advance our maturity in this space, we won't get federal grants anymore. So yeah, that's a real loss in revenue, I think, to the future. And from the perspective of, so where can what would these economic benefits look like? I'll have Tina start with that and go from there.
Like Lucy talked, and also we put in the staff report. So we heard from the presentation, the EMBC's 2024 annual conference. We do need to have the long-term financial plan to kind of input into those LGDE local government data entry by 2030. So if we are failing to do that, that would mean like we're not kind of qualifying for the UBCM's grants anymore, and that will be 1.2 million annually based on what we currently have, based on the currently agreements. And we also got an example from our operational team regarding the benefits of the AM program. So, so right now, like over the next 20 years, Chris, our senior manager, water, wastewater, gave us this example. He was saying like we will replace 90% of our water main, and with an estimated cost approximately $400 million. So right now, our replacement work are actually based on the useful life, estimated useful life. Yearly, it's at 60 years. But with the AM program kick in, over estimation about when to replacing those water mains will be based on actual condition or risks. So if we can kind of like extend 5 years of those water main replacement, the calculation will be, like 5 divided by 60 years, and then we times the total estimated cost, replacement cost, $400 million. That will account for like 33 million in total. So if you kind of like divide the $33 million within the next 5 or 20 years, it's a huge dollar amount. So that's actually kind of like emphasizing the benefits we can get from this AM program will be way more than what we cost. Although it's substantial in front of everyone, but the risks are not doing it is actually even more. Yeah.
All right, thanks. I appreciate that extra bit of detail. Director Arbor, thanks for your patience.
Yeah, thanks. I think I'm still, despite these explanations, I'm still very much with Dr. McCollum on this. And I guess the way I look at it is there's the people that live at Crown Isle and have perfectly manicured lawns and perfect houses and everything's in perfect shape. And they're doing asset management. And then there's the people in the rural areas that grass is high and, you know, the shed is about to fall down and they're not doing asset management. I'm kind of characterizing here, but what I'm trying to drive at is ultimately it's a board decision as to what acceptable financial risk is in comparison to costs of providing the ultimate Cadillac service, right? And it's a dance. It's a dance, especially in an economic environment that we are sitting in right now. And I think it's noticed, especially by rural residents, when if we're too up to date on everything that we do, I think that you start to get criticized for that because in a way you're using taxpayers' money to make for a perfect local government service. The thing in the report, so this is just my background, and I think in the report when I hear, you know, oh, we'll lose you BCM grants. Okay, so there's not enough details on that in the report. Because, for example, the report highlights we've done a good job with the building the asset management for water systems for the in the rural areas, and we've gone through a whole 5 years of doing that and increasing tax requisition and trying to balance the needs of the future with the resources of today. And from what I hear in the report is that we're doing actually a pretty decent job as that, right? So what I would say is the federal grants, sorry, it was a federal grants. Are they just going to deny, are just going to they blacklist CVRD? Or will they say, we won't give you a grant for your water system unless that component is up to date? So maybe we decide that on regional parks and trails, we don't need the high level of asset management because we won't apply for grants. And on this other one, like, I'm just saying there's not enough detail. Are we trying to have perfection across the board? Because it is a huge jump. And then, so if I'm allowed a second question, and you can ignore the second question. My second question is I've been typing madly right now because I think the proposed increase is huge at a time where, from what I'm reading so far, asset management is ripe for AI. And I know we're probably Excel based, we're probably all that, but apparently the field is transforming. CityWorks has got a bunch of partnership on sewer and otherwise with certain municipalities. So I'm just wondering if that aspect is being considered in the plan as well. Thanks.
Is that to you, Tina, or to?
Yeah, it's just, I lost my thought on the grant piece. Is there something you want to start with, Tina, that's on your mind?
So regarding the grant application, we did apply for the AM capacity building through the strategic planning grants through the UBCM. I think our application, if I remember correctly, I think it's a $750K. We don't really know whether we're going to succeed regarding that grant application. I think promisely we will get the result back like later next year. If that's being succeed, and Lucy, correct me if I'm wrong, we may have a budget amendment, right? Yeah, so that's kind of like we're trying our best to kind of applying or get whatever grants we can to reducing the cost from the operation or from the tax dollar amounts. Yeah, like so far, we haven't heard anything back. And again, I think the earliest time will be later next year, will be after the budget adoption. Mm-hmm.
I did remember my thought, and I'm so sorry, Chair, Director Arbor. From your question, Director Arbor, regarding from the expectation of the federal government and where we need to be in an asset management program in our local governments in order to be eligible for grants, our understanding is overall. So the language and the grant documents right now speaks to an overall asset management maturity and program established in your organizations. It doesn't, not to my recollection, there isn't a place where it says that, okay, you're applying for something that has to do with water. Well, your water has to be at a certain level, but it's okay if everything else isn't. It's globally, that's what they've been looking at. So I just wanted to leave you with that. And from an overall program perspective, and absolutely all about the board of what level of risk you want to accept in something like this, and to what level of service do you want your asset management program to be at. So overall, you see that we've looked at this 5-year span. Across the 5 years, we're going to a level 3. Is it the full 5 levels that are there from an asset management program? No. So it's not the ultimate in what is best practice from an asset management program. It's going from level 1 to level 3. We do think that will be acceptable as we're applying for grants. It's showing that we're advancing forward. However, as a board, and if you, from providing direction back to staff, that may be one lever that you may want to just shoot for level 2. Don't shoot for level 3. So, and that could bring back our costs. And I mean, that was one of the first things as we rolled it up is, so what's our alternatives to spending this $5 million and going down this road? And probably that whole weighing from a grant perspective and reputational perspective and needing to take care of our assets sort of leaves us at that place of bringing this forward to you and building that plan to get to that level 3. But, absolutely, if you're looking for something less. And I do think that we've rolled costs up into here, whether you have a full asset management program or not. I think you'd see some of these costs anyways, because you can't operate our water departments or our sewage treatment plants without having a level of understanding of your assets. So I just suspect as we were rolling this up that you may see some of these costs. You likely will see some of these costs rolled in your budgets even without a formal program being there.
All right, thanks, Lucy. And Director Curry, you haven't spoken yet. Please go ahead.
Great, thanks, Lucy and Tina, for the report. The spiderweb graphs on page 26 and 28 are really shocking. So definitely, I'm motivated to move this forward in some way. I guess my question is around creating an asset management department. Is there a critical mass of people? Like if you let's say we wanted to get to level 3 by 2030, but that meant going a bit slower, not having quite the increase so quickly. Could 1 or 2 people in the first year get the ball rolling, get things started, maybe investigate AI, as Director Arbor said, get the ball rolling, or is really not having a critical mass of people just going to fail? Do you need 2 or 3 people to really work as a team to create a department? Just curious about that. What's the kind of minimum step we could get up to start this process? Thanks.
Through the chair, one of the alternatives that we considered, how can we stretch this out? And it's James coming back. Of course, we know it's lots of big asks, lots of staff. How can we do this differently? If you wanted this to be slower, if you wanted the costs to be less shocking in any given 1 year, stretch it out. What would happen from an outcome perspective is that we can advance on, you have our water department that's currently on a computerized maintenance system, well underway on their assets and whatnot. We likely would then prioritize our sewer treatment. You'd likely have to push off your recreation facilities. That'll all stretch out. So instead of that happening, right now we have a pretty, we have an aggressive plan going into next year. The departments want to do it, where we're onboarding 2 other major departments, other major departments onto our CMMS system. And with that comes all the advancement in inventory and whatnot. So we feel that we would have to take something out of that and stretch it out to the future, and that'll just delay things like solid waste management going to the future, parks and whatnot. So we can take that type of approach. So what would that look like from a staffing perspective? We have 2 instead of 3. The 3 moves out further if our onboarding of community service type services, asset management pieces come on later on in the plan. So that generally speaking, there's other pieces in there, but generally speaking, those are the big moving parts that has a whole bunch of other stuff supporting it, like your consultants to figure out your assets and condition assessment and risk assessment, technology.
All right, thanks, Lucy. And we'll go to Director Brown then.
Thanks, and thanks to all the directors for the comments so far. I'm generally, well, I was pretty shocked with and terrified for the Village of Cumberland because we also need to embark on this journey, quite frankly. So I guess I'm trying to understand. So we have the cost estimates for the 5 years, whatever it is, 3 years. We developed the team, and we've got consultants doing the assessments and stuff. So I understand the staffing requirements for this initial period, but am I also understanding that those wouldn't reduce over time because that team needs to then update the management plan every 5 years or 3 years or however often that has to happen? Will there be any reduction in that cost? Like, will the consultants go away, or will we build the assessment into our own capacity, or how might we see that number hopefully go down over time?
Yeah, through the chair, I want to say, yes, the consultants will go down.
Just making that up.
If there's, that is our hope. Right? Tina has spoken about all this upfront work that needs to be done to understand our assets, and once you catch up on your asset base and you have condition risk all done and in, then it becomes much easier as you bring on new stuff that you're doing that as you go. So that will reduce. And as you said, we want to build in-house expertise that's a lot less expensive than going out to our consultants. So we're absolutely going to do that. So that will, I'm confident that's going to reduce. You're not going to see that to the future. And as far as the staffing that we've added in here, it's what's needed in the organization to sustain most, I would say most, all of the very significant departments that take care of the assets right now, right? Further on in the plan, when we look at parks and fleet and our fire halls and things like that, those are much smaller scale than obviously than our assets go with water and sewage treatment and our recreation facilities, right? So yeah, the bulk is here, and going to the future, absolutely, we see that's not going to be that kind of cost going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, a few more lights coming on this. We go to Director Moran.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, you've touched on this around the in-house capacity piece. Excuse me. I mean, I would think that with asset management really becoming a focal point, that the professional bodies and educational requirements now probably embed that into, engineering, et cetera, I would hope. So is the hope that as we hire new people, that would be in the job description, that they would have that kind of expertise, so that we could hopefully over time embed enough of that in-house expertise, that potentially we definitely would not be hiring new people and maybe getting, letting the consultants' fees fade away. That's one question. I might have a follow-up.
Tina, just a second.
Thanks, Director Merle. Yes, definitely when we hire the new AM branch specialist and also the rest of, we will incorporate those in the job descriptions. And we also have AM training plan in the strategy, one of our initiatives, one of the 14. So we will develop a competency framework. We'll kind of like have all our roles currently we have in CDRD and figure out what kind of levels of knowledge, AM knowledge, for those kind of positions require, and then we'll provide trainings, either internal or kind of external, basic or medium to advanced. So we are doing those works actually right now, but yeah, so those are kind of within our consideration, not only the new hiring, but also the existing staff.
Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to add, obviously, we're political leaders here and we're going into an election year. And this is not going to be the only staffing increase request. So I think if there is any way to spread out the pain, or still do what we need to do. I'm not sure if that means going from level 3 to level 2 or what, but I think that it is something that yeah, we have to have some buy-in, and once we start putting out that list of all the new hires, it does become pretty difficult. And as was mentioned, this is a bit of an abstract thing. Well, I mean, it shouldn't be concrete, assets are concrete, but I think just the idea of what do asset management folks do? I think there's probably not a lot of knowledge. There's quite a bit of confusion about what that means compared to, hiring an engineer when we have a whole bunch of new projects coming. That makes more sense to people. So again, it's always around the communication, and I think being proactive. I know that we always come up with business cases for our new hires, but I think, again, just trying to be proactive to the potential reaction that we'll get to this, as well as other new hires, I think is important. Thanks.
I could add one piece. From a communication perspective, it was one, we're really thankful actually that the directors, that was one of the items to communicate out to the public, spend more time doing that. So we do have a communication plan that's drawn up. There's a really great little video that's almost ready to go out. There's a press release that's going to go out in this space. So we are spending time on trying to get the community, having the community understand more what's happening from an asset management perspective, right? It's all their assets, and we're trying hard to make sure we take care of them and just make sure they don't deteriorate sooner than they can. So I just wanted to make sure I put that out there, and we have outwards communication ready to go, and we'll keep doing that as we go.
Right, thanks, Lucy. And we'll go to Director Grieve, and I guess then maybe a final comment from Director Brown.
Thanks very much. Asset management, I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. We can do the gold plated, as Director Arbor said, the gold plated method, where we just, hedge all our bets. We know everything about anything. And the other side of the coin, you have one of the former mayor of Cumberland is called the Bronco School, where you fix it when it breaks. I have a lot of fear and foreboding on this. It was alluded to earlier, we're living in very dangerous times. We've got the soaring stock market balancing on very questionable foundations right now. Sky high gold prices, building a huge bubble. We're just waiting for the shoe to drop. So my question is, how do we unwind this? How do we back out? We're making all these assumptions like it's we're partying like it's 1999, right? How do we back out of this if we have to go back to basics? I see us approaching our budget cycle right now, and there's, I'm guilty of wanting some of the nice to haves too, not just the need to haves. So I push for that, I know. But at the end of the day, we've got the sacred trust of our taxpayers. And if we get down too far down this road, I mean, can we just hit the big stop button and stop it right now and just deal with the stuff that is most crucial, most adamant, right in your face, the stuff we have to deal with, like the busting water main up there on Tweed Road, that sort of stuff. Or are we going to be having all these people, on computers doing all this assessment? It's a really hard sell to the public. I know it's asset management is important because we neglected it for so many years. But do we have the right balance on this? This is my question. And how do we back out of it if we have to hit that big red stop button?
through the chair, I guess, for
Yeah,
good?
that's a very sort of big picture existential question. I know the CAO's been wanting to jump in just to say a few things. Do you mind, Director Brown, if I just let him speak next? And perhaps this might be a good time for you to make a few comments.
Thanks. Yeah, and I was hoping to provide a couple of summary comments. I'm not sure if Director Brown had any other specific questions, but we hear you. We want to bring this asset management program, the report, forward to describe some of the work that is going on and the important work going on. But we hear you, and we knew that this was going to be a contentious topic for sure. I think there's some work we can do in terms of quantifying some of the impacts and the benefits associated with a program. Tina, you were articulating a little bit about what Chris LaRose had spoken to in terms of the amount of capital work we know and the applying some of the asset management principles to better understand when maintenance happens. And that alone can save millions of dollars or delay costs into the future because of a better appreciation for the assets, which is real money, which is tangible value for the community. But it's a hard piece to describe today if we're talking about an increase to taxes. So we understand that. But I think we can do a better job to try to quantify some of that. In developing the staff report, I asked several times for some quantification and some comparison. How are we doing in terms of compared to other jurisdictions? And it's hard to compare to because not every jurisdiction describes their asset management work in the same way. So it's not really an apples to apples comparison to put out there. One other piece I think we can do a little bit more of is trying to quantify what is the cost of not doing business or not doing a program like this or delaying that program. I heard opportunity there to delay the onset or the outroll, the rollout of the program. So I think there are opportunities there, but I think we can quantify that too. And that is a decision for the board in terms of level of service. And maybe it's as simple as going from a maturity level 3 to a 2. I don't imagine it's going to be that simple, but we'll try to come back with information that can do that. And then I guess lastly, like we said, there's no recommendation here today. This was really a bit of a forecast on the program. We are heading into the budget cycle. We will have your proposed financial plan available in mid-January, and then we'll go through the regular process that we do. Hearing the discussions today, I think we're going to come back to the drawing board a little bit and look at either rolling the program out in a bit of a delayed fashion or providing some articulated responses to the pros, the cons, the benefits of either following an approach or delaying the approach. So those were kind of some of my summary comments, and this was the point of having this conversation, is to really understand where the board is at and try to share some information about the asset management program and the values.
Yeah, I would just add, for sure, roll it all into the budget. We can see multiple pieces of what we talked about here from alternatives, maybe really better to do as we talk specifically about water, specifically about sewer, and we can articulate more of these things and you can make your decisions obviously and weigh that. As you say, of course, their budget's all about weighing different asks and wants and needs in across all of our service. So that's the place where you make decisions around, well, is there something new that's going to come in, or is this what we're going to do? You know, for myself, I'll always recommend to the board that you take care of what you have first, right, before we add anything new. So, you know, at whatever level, we decide what level you want your assets taken care of. But spend a lot of money on what's out there and putting in place and just making sure that we do adequate amount of preventative maintenance, for example, is something that I think we would always prioritize higher to you and recommend to you as staff when we come forward.
All right, thanks very much. And I appreciate staff. This is a really vigorous conversation. I think it's a really important one. And I guess what I'm hearing is I do sense around the table that board members do see the value in asset management. Like, you don't wait until your car engine seizes to change the oil. And there's just certain inherent logic to it. I think we all see that. I think that the challenge obviously is just the scale of the investment being contemplated. But I sense here that staff realize that that's a concern. And if there's a way of 80-20, it would be far too optimistic, but some way of being able to achieve maximal results with a smaller investment and with a business case for that would be good come budget time. But For all that conversation, we are only on receipt, but anyone opposed to receipt? And that carries. Thanks very much, Lucy. And thanks very much, Tina. And we'll go to the next item, the Indigenous Relations Update. And I'll pass this over to our CEO to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll introduce Christiane Weil, our Senior Manager of Strategic Initiatives, to provide this update on our Indigenous relations activities undertaken over the 24 and 25 years, and also looking ahead in this space. So Christiane, over to you.
Great, thank you very much. Just going to see if I can work this here. Okay, I'd like to start at the presentation just with sharing this artwork, which was created by Jesse Everson for the Reconciliation Advisory Table. Jesse explained to us in his submission that when younger grizzlies come to a river to catch salmon, they're taught and corrected by the older generations, and they must try again to make a successful catch. And Jesse explained that just like the grizzly, we as humans must keep trying to improve, and then that repetition helps us to learn and become better people. And I'm happy to share today some of the work that we're doing to advance Indigenous relations at the CVRD. And like the grizzly, we continue to learn and grow through this work. We started our reconciliation journey by catching very few fish, but by working together with open hearts and minds, we're continually improving. The presentation today is going to build on the information that was provided to you by the Reconciliation Advisory Table at the Elected Officials Forum last week. And I'll walk through some of the highlights now of the initiatives that we have underway, but you'll find more detail in Appendix 1 and 2 of your staff report. The CVRD acknowledges the harms of cultural erasure and commits to providing opportunities for the staff and board to learn about the history, language, and culture of the Comox and Pentlatch tribes that make up the Comox First Nation. In 2025, the CVRD had more than 230 registrants and delivered 10 courses through the Indigenous Learning Journey project on a variety of topics, including residential schools, colonization, history, culture, values, Indigenous worldview, and cultural safety. We also made space for Comox First Nation reps, Indigenous community groups, and other local governments to share in these opportunities. The course offering will be updated annually as we continue to explore and identify additional resources and partnerships with organizations like the Kumagway Cultural Society. Through wonderful partnerships and supportive learning opportunities, we're walking down the path of reconciliation and starting to decolonize some ways of thinking and doing. This includes engaging Indigenous people with lived experiences and working with Comox First Nation Health Services on the Comox Valley Community Homelessness Plan. We've pooled Indigenous engagement requirements grant funding among local governments and allocated resources for a disaster risk reduction coordinator position for Comox First Nation that has been instrumental in collaboration at the operational level. We've also partnered with Comox on a successful grant for a climate resilience project at Pelhu. This project will complete coastal, archaeological, and ecological assessment of the area known as Goose Spit to protect residential areas and critical infrastructure from flood, sea level rise, storm surge, and erosion. We're applying witnessing methodology to our work with the Coastal Flood Adaptation Strategy and the Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan. The guidance provided by our witnessing consultant will help us to include Indigenous voices and knowledge in our emergency planning and respectfully collaborate on other CVRD projects moving forward. The CVRD has also partnered with the Comox Guardians to provide a nature-based solution to protect the coastline at Dyke Road Park from erosion and flood risk. A new traditional name, that was for effect. A new traditional name for Dyke Road Park, along with signage for the park, will be announced in the near future, and we're very excited about that. And I'd just like to mention that importantly, we're pushing back against the province as well when grant timelines and requirements don't provide the right conditions for collaboration. We want to do this work respectively, and we have open dialogue now with the grant funders about what's required to accomplish that. And I'll also point out that the body of your staff report identifies several other activities that we're hoping to undertake in the coming years. Some of those would require additional resources, and those initiatives would support the development of protocols, policies, procedures that support reconciliation and advance cultural safety, including the development of best practices, staff training, and tools. So the CVRD is adjusting to a corporate-wide approach that involves Indigenous engagement at the start of our project cycle. That includes allocating time for meaningful consultation and project plans, funding legal and technical review of engineering reports, project agreements, and strategic plans. And staff will also ensure sufficient allocation of grant funds for capacity building, collaboration, and partnership on those projects that require provincial or federal funding. Ongoing dialogue with Comox First Nation and the province has resulted in a better understanding of archaeological requirements, and Heritage Conservation Act permits and cultural heritage inspection permits touch on many aspects of the CVRD's services, from operations and maintenance of trails, sewer and water pipelines to multi-year capital works. There's also impacts to developers and homeowners and businesses that might initiate ground disturbance within the HCA and CHIP boundary for new construction, renovations, or expansion of a home or business. Appendix 3 of your staff report describes in detail how the CVRD is supporting the application of the Comox chip, both externally and internally, as well as our participation on the consultation underway for the Heritage Conservation Act. So in March 2025, it was a very exciting time. The Comox First Nation ratified a treaty to become a self-governing nation. Comox will own its treaty lands and make decisions about those lands to support economic growth, investment, and prosperity for its people that will benefit all of the Comox Valley. The CVRD is committed to working alongside Comox during its transition to self-governance. And as we move towards effective treaty date, the CVRD will provide information to ready directors and staff to work with Comox as a treaty nation. We'll arrange information sessions with the treaty team, and we'll work with Comox to develop protocols, procedures, service agreements, and memorandums of understanding to support our government-to-nation relationship. And in 2026, the BC government will table legislation that will enable the province to ratify the treaty in the next major step towards implementation. Comox has asked the CVRD to send a letter in support of the treaty to the Premier and Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation in advance of tabling of that legislation. And the recommendation before you today reflects that request. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Christiane. I really appreciate the report. It was very comprehensive. Just looking around to see if it's just on receipt at this point. And whose light is flashing? It's Director Hillians. There we go.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks very much. It's a very thorough report. At first, I wasn't sure how it actually related to the recommendation, but I'm glad that you mentioned that this was a request from Comox. I don't think that was noted in the report itself, so I appreciate you mentioning that. And I think it's a really important opportunity for us to affirm what we've already stated here around the table on many occasions with a tangible step to advance this. I don't have any doubt that the province is on board, but I do note that I believe the letter also expressed some interest in seeing if we had any potential influence with MLAs in the opposition. Who will also have a vote on this. And that might be an area where we also have some opportunity to exert some influence. I'm not making any suggestions along those lines right now, but I think it's worth our while to think about how we might be able to influence our MLA along these lines to support this treaty going forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Director Hillian and Director Moore.
Great, thanks, Chair. Thank you for the report. I have a question around the community events and initiatives piece. I had a question from community member who's First Nations, not part of Comox First Nation, but around events and what local governments are doing to support things like Indigenous Peoples Day, et cetera. And I, you know, I was able to say that both the RD and the city provide funding for those events, and was also able to say that staff and council and board members volunteers, which is all noted in the report, which is great. I think there was, there's, I guess, a feeling of some that, you know, some of the work for organizing those kinds of events, or much of the work is kind of put on to people, Indigenous folks. And I guess I'm just wondering if that conversation has ever come up at the advisory table around, you know, how much involvement should we have? You know, we're always sort of stepping back, I think, and not wanting to impose or, but I think that question is out there sometimes, like, what are we doing to support those kinds of events rather than all the work seemingly happening through the, you know, the people who maybe should be hosted instead of hosting, if that makes sense.
Yes, so I think these are discussions that have happened at the advisory table around community events. I think it's not always about money. It is about capacity and support. So when we're able to encourage our staff to volunteer and to send volunteers to the events, that's really meaningful as well. Currently, these events are funded. There's requests that come in from Comox First Nation to fund Indigenous Peoples Day, and the other events are funded through applications that are made through the Rural Grants program. So that's what we have in place now. Nothing formal to address your concerns. I'll just say that it is a discussion that has taken place, certainly, and nobody's come up with a solution as of yet, but these discussions are happening.
Yeah, I guess there's been questions about why are we not leading? Like, why are we not the ones doing most of the work for Indigenous Peoples Day to celebrate rather than the other way around? And I mean, I don't know what the answer to that question is, but it sounds like you're having those discussions, and maybe that will come back to us at some point to have, you know, have some kind of discussion on what our role could be that could perhaps be more supportive. So thanks.
If I can, I think the advisory table that you had an update from last week at the elected officials forum, I think that's a great venue for that kind of a conversation. And we have had some dialogue there. There's been some discussion, but it can be something that we carry on and get more sort of context or understanding and awareness, and make sure that we take steps that are in a really meaningful and positive way and thoughtful way. We don't want to overstep.
And thanks, Ao. And Director Hardy, please go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment. And yeah, ordinarily on Indigenous Day, you're a day where you're kind of would like to have the day off, but you're out there hosting people. And but I think also, if you look at it from another perspective too, I could see a number of First Nations also saying, well, what the heck is the city of Courtenay and the town of Comox doing all that work for? How come it's not First Nations that are doing it? So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So that was just my thought and comment there. So thank you for the comment all the same.
Well, that's maybe why it's still a work in progress. It sounds like the discussion there. We'll go to Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. I've actually thought about my earlier comment, and I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to, when we get to the recommendation, to potentially amend it to copy our MLA. If there'd be any reason why we wouldn't do that.
I think actually CVRD board policy would be that any letters sent to ministers are automatically copied to the local MLAs. So that will be done.
Excellent. Good to hear. Director Hardy.
Yeah, as a follow-up to Director Hillian's comments earlier, and I know he was away on holidays and not able to attend the last main table meeting. But there was a reason and a purpose for, again, Comox approaching the CBRD and local governments with regards to the letter of support for moving forward on the ratification process. And as you stated earlier, we have, two MLAs, one that's part of the government and one that's the opposition. And again, with regards to the debates that are going to occur during BC's ratification process, we know the opposition has a different approach with regards to reconciliation than the current government. So again, just moving forward from a strategic perspective from KFN, from BC chief negotiators and Canadian chief negotiators, they thought that during these debates in the House, that if there are letters of support from local governments saying we totally support Comox and their treaty and where they're going, recognizing that there's a benefit to everybody here at the end of the day. And as Chair Hamilton had made mention of last week, and you've heard me say this a number of different times, it's not just a Comox treaty, it's a City of Courtenay treaty, it's a Village of Cumberland treaty, it's a Town of Comox treaty, it's a Vancouver Island treaty, and it's a BC treaty and Canadian treaty. And when we have folks in opposition, it's always easy on the other side of the table to say, we're opposed to this. And hence why Comox was seeking that support from local governments as a means of, if local governments are on board, then, opposition leader, here's a whole bunch of letters of support with regards to moving on this process. So hopefully that helps with regards to a little bit more context of the questions that you asked earlier. And I hope you enjoyed your trip over there.
Thanks, Director Hardy. So we were on receipt. Is anyone opposed to receipt? And dispensing with that, there's the recommendation. That's moved and seconded. All right. Any discussion on that? Anyone opposed to the recommendation? And that carries. We now go to move 5. These are BCOB minutes from October 6th. Moved and seconded. Any questions on those? Any opposed? It carries. ESC from October 6th. Moved and seconded. Any questions? Any opposed? That carries. Sewage Commission, October 7th. Moved and seconded. Any questions? Anyone opposed? Water from October 7th. Thank you very much. Perfect. Anyone opposed? Carries. And for first, second, and third reading, Graham Lake Water System Parcel Tax Bylaw. That's moved. Anyone care to second it? And I believe that is all. It's a vote of everyone. Anyone opposed? Okay. And move third reading. It's moved and seconded. Anyone opposed? It receives third reading now. And this is Graham Lake Water Local Service Tolls Bylaw number 926. Yeah, that's okay. First and second reading, first and seconded. Anyone opposed? That carries. Okay. First and second, third. Anyone opposed to that? And that passes third reading. And for final adoption, the Sports Track and Field Services Conversion Bylaw. All right, moved and seconded. Anyone? Here's no one else feels that way, but you did, so that's good. Anyway, so that's for final adoption. Anyone opposed? That carries. Thanks, everyone. This has been a good meeting. Move termination. Oh, just a second. Director Hardy.
Yeah, thanks. And just one more final comment with regards to my comment earlier with regards to the letter of support. And I know at main table, it was, I put forward the item with regards to, I don't think that there is a question with regards to the support from local governments with regards to the Comox Treaty. I said we had a number of representatives from local governments that attended our ratification vote out there smiling in the pouring down rain and when it's blowing 40 kilometers per hour and just big smiles on their faces, participating and helping out and even being there for the final count at the end of the night. So lots of support there, and I made sure that everybody was cognizant of that and everybody was fine saying yes. So it's just kind of more of a formality if anything.
I love it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Formalizing a very strong pre-existing support. All right, everyone, we were on termination. Anyone opposed? That carries. All right, have a good evening.